Hey everyone, and today in the spirit of October and Halloween, we are going to be looking at some totally true, 100% legit, like it so totally happened, real, psychic stories from people. And debunking them. Hi baby, you gonna come up? You gonna help me debunk? Yeah? You're my debunking sidekick, yeah? No, okay, just gonna go play with her toys. Alright, while she's chewing in the background, let's jump into these stories. So, this article I found is just a HuffPost article. I don't really read HuffPost, but I was searching for like totally true psychic stories, you know, that kind of thing. And this one came up. And I thought this one was quite interesting because it features stories from people who work for HuffPost. And they're like, you know, like, oh my god, it shocked me how real it was kind of stories. And the evidences, or should I say the evidences that they provide, are the kind of things that, you know, the regular everyday people might be shocked by and might see as evidence, but which can be very easily, like, debunked and explained away, which is why I thought it was a kind of interesting and important one to talk about, which is what we're going to be doing today. Hello. Oh, I know what you're reminding me of. I know. So before we get started, Kyra here has very kindly reminded me that I want to let you all know about a really cool new design I have in my merch store, which features a gorgeous cartoon little Kyra and the Adopt Don't Shop phrase, motto, life lesson. Basically, it's a new t-shirt I have designed. I worked really hard on it last week, spent quite a bit of time on it, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. It features an adorable little cartoon Kyra and the Adopt Don't Shop slogan, which is basically what I live my life by. I'm all for adopting animals and getting rescue animals instead of going out and buying from breeders, which don't always have like specific regulations or rules in place. The animals aren't always treated very well, and I am fully in support of adopting and rescuing animals, and so that's what this t-shirt's all about. And as a little thank you to Battersea Dogs and Cats Home, where I adopted Kyra from, what was it, about 18 months ago? Yeah. I'm going to be donating a portion of the profits to Battersea, so I don't make a huge amount on each t-shirt, and there's some other bits as well, like phone cases and stickers. I don't make a huge amount of profit on each item, but I'm going to be donating at least £1 from every item sold to Battersea. A little bit more than that for some items, like the t-shirts where I make a bit more money, but on the things like the stickers where I don't make a lot, like £1 from that is going to go towards Battersea. From other things, it's going to be like £1.50, £2, so on. So basically, it's a t-shirt. Yes, I know, it features you. It's a t-shirt for charity that features this little one, and it's all about promoting adopting and rescuing animals, and I absolutely love it. So if you want to go check it out, the link is on screen now, and also you can go find the link down in the description below. My merch store also has loads of other cool designs, like my octopus t-shirt, my Be Kind t-shirt, my That's Not How You Science t-shirt, and loads of cool stuff like that. They're all designed by me. I've put like a lot of work and time into them, and I'm really proud of all my designs. But this one with Kyra is probably one of my favourite ones so far, and I'm really happy with it. And like I say, it's for a good cause. If you're interested in that and helping out some gorgeous little dogs and cats who need it, and supporting Battersea for all the amazing work they do, please go and check that out. Okay, and with that, let's jump into the psychic stories. 1.5 years or 2 years after my father died, I interviewed a medium for a story. After the interview, we had lunch and he asked if I wanted a reading. I agreed and told him that for the most part, I wasn't going to confirm or deny anything he said. I didn't tell him about my father dying, though he was somewhat of a public figure, so definitely Googleable. So before we even get into this, we know this is definitely going to be what's called a hot reading. Hot readings are where the medium has done research on the subject or the mark beforehand. So in this case, the medium definitely knew who was going to be interviewing them, definitely Googled them, definitely would have found out about the father dying. They've definitely done their research before coming into this reading. They know what they're going to say already, and that's why they offered it. As he began the reading, he told me the short, chubby woman with red hair was there, and she kept saying Ethel, Ethel. Pretty generic description. Maybe he'd seen a photo of this person online, that sort of thing. Ethel, very generic and popular name amongst all the generations, so not, you know, a huge thing there. My grandma was a short, chubby woman with red hair that looked just like Ethel Merman. A bit further into the reading, the medium said, "There's a man with Ethel, and he has a message for you." Interesting how he's just calling her Ethel now, like he doesn't actually know her real name, so just glossing over that bit. He wants you to tell Ruth that he loves her. Little did the medium know that my mum and dad had been married for 35 years when my dad died. Actually, he probably did know that if your dad was a public figure and Googleable, so whatever. And they were the most madly in love people I've ever met. Oh, that my mum's middle name is Ruth, and he always called her Ruthie. And he was the only one. Everyone else called her by her first name. I was shocked. If this was legit, then surely the spirit of the dead dad would be saying, tell Ruthie I love her, and not Ruth. Because, you know, that's weird. Chances are, again, he probably just, like, Googled this couple, saw the woman's name written down somewhere as, like, blah, blah, Ruth, whatever, and picked up on it. With the hairs on my neck already standing on end, the medium said, there's more. He wants you to tell her that she can get rid of his neckties now. Does that make sense? And I was stunned. I responded, yes. Even though it's been quite some time since he died, she hasn't been able to bring herself to get rid of his clothes yet. So this, again, might sound shocking and specific, but it's really not. It's kind of a big thing when your partner dies that sometimes people find it really hard to get rid of their stuff, specifically their clothes. Their clothes tend to be the things that smell of them, that are very personal to them, and it can be really hard to get rid of them. It feels like you're getting rid of the person from your life. Even years later, it can be hard to get rid of their stuff. I know, like, when my grandparents died, like, getting rid of their clothes was one of the hardest bits, because, like, you know, you'd look at their wardrobe and be like, oh god, do you remember the time she wore this? Do you remember the time she wore this? Do you remember when we bought her this? It's like clothes are a part of the person, they help define the person, and so getting rid of the clothes is one of the hardest bits. It's fairly common, I think, that a wife or a husband struggles to get rid of their dead partner's clothing. And I also think it's fairly common, I'm going to say this before we read the next bit because I know what's coming up, I also think it's very common that when they do finally give away a lot of their clothes and stuff, sometimes they want to keep something small to remember them by. For example, if it's a man, you might keep his ties, because that's a small thing that doesn't take up a lot of room, but it's still a big part of their personality, their character, that sort of thing. Or, you know, for younger generations, they might keep a t-shirt or, I don't know, like a handbag or a scarf or something like that. But I think it's very common for wives to keep the ties or a small selection of ties of their deceased husbands. Like, I can't quite remember this, but I'm pretty sure that might have been what one of my grandmas did when their husbands died. I can't remember. So I think it's very, very common, which means the next bit isn't as shocking to me as it was to this woman, where she says, I called my mum after the reading and told her what the medium had said about my father supposedly saying he loved her. She was crying when I said, oh, and you still haven't got rid of his clothes, have you? She said, well, actually, I didn't tell you, but I finally cleared out his closets and took everything to Goodwill 2 weeks ago. I said, that's so weird. The medium said, Dad said you could get rid of his neckties now. It was time. Mum began to cry even harder and said, the only thing that I kept was his neckties. They're still in his closet. There's no way the medium could have known that. I didn't even know that. For Christmas that year, my mum gave my 2 brothers and me quilts made out of his neckties. This is a mixture of hot and cold reading because the medium clearly did his research beforehand and knew the interviewer, knew the father who was dead, who was a public figure, and knew enough about them and their private life to be able to make these assumptions. And the rest of it, the stuff about the clothes and the ties, is cold reading techniques using kind of patterns of behavior and saying, okay, well, like a large percentage of the population who fit into these categories behave this way, therefore I'm going to make the assumption that these people are going to behave in this way and ask them if they have. That's all they're doing. I just want to throw out a little note that if you're new here, it would be really amazing if you want to head down and subscribe to my channel. I make more videos about kind of sciencey stuff, debunking psychics, atheism stuff, and also just fun stuff like book reviews and talking about puppies and just having a bit of a giggle. So if you're new here, it would be great if you stick around, and I would really appreciate you subscribing. Also, if you've been here for a while, I've had a few people come to me recently saying that they've been unsubscribed by YouTube, so you might just want to check your subscriptions. You know, see if you are still subscribed, that kind of thing. The next story is in a similar vein with like those kinds of cold reading techniques. This one starts with, I went to a palm reader my first month of college with 2 friends. You have an 18-year-old girl who's just started college who comes to you. What are you going to be expecting of them? You're going to be thinking like, okay, career and education stuff. Probably some stuff about boys and friends. Let's make some assumptions based on what most 18-year-olds do. And that's exactly what she did. She told me she thought I'd be a journalist, which at the time I thought was a swing and a miss. I had no intention of writing professionally. Yeah, that's kind of like a generic thing you can say to people, be like, oh, you're going to be a journalist. You know, all she has to do is ask this girl what she's studying, and if it was something like English or whatever, she'd be like, oh, you're going to be a journalist. Like, it's not an accurate prediction, and there's a chance there's a little bit of self-fulfilling prophecy in here as well, so who knows. She also told me that there were two men, one who wanted to hold on to me but I wanted to pull away, and another that I wanted to be closer to. Literally typical teenage girl stuff. I'm assuming this happens to most reasonably attractive college students at some point in their life. She says, I was still getting calls from a guy I dated for like a week at the end of high school, and I had a huge crush on my best guy friend at college. She told me if I pulled back from the guy I wanted and played it cool, things would work out. Again, generic basic advice. Don't come on too strong. Okay. I followed her advice. I had previously confessed my feelings and had a really hard time hiding how emotionally wrecked I was that he didn't reciprocate. And within a few weeks, he was showing interest. We got together that fall and had a very turbulent but personally formative on and off relationship for the rest of college. Looking back, she was really good at reading me, better than I was for sure. No, she just knows teenage girls. She's just one of these people who, like, can pick up on patterns and trends and so on. It's, yeah, a generic thing. It's not anything specific to you. She wasn't actually seeing your future. Exactly the same story with this next story. We're talking about a, I think, 16-year-old girl in this next one, and she just pulls out the most, like, generic 16-year-old girl stuff. She says, my mum is very big into psychics and has read tarot cards since I was a baby. When I was in high school, she had a psychic over to the house, and the psychic told us I would break up with my then boyfriend of a year. I was about 16, but the person I was meant to be with would pop up around the time I would be going to college. Naturally, I was devastated as a teen would be to hear they aren't going to make it with their first love. Yeah, but seriously, how many people today end up with their high school boyfriends that they're with at like 15 and 16? Not many. It's not out there to suggest you're going to break up, and it's not out there to suggest you might end up with someone you meet in college. It's a pretty normal thing for a lot of people and teenagers, and yeah. I broke up with my high school boyfriend at the end of my senior year of high school and started dating someone I had been friends with soon after. We married 7 years later. Again, typical generic story. The psychic didn't predict it, she just used patterns of what happens to most teenagers and said, yeah, this is probably going to happen to you. And it did. The next story, and the last one I want to talk about today, is a bit of a weird one for me because, well, we'll get to it in a minute. I've never visited a psychic, but one day I was standing outside a restaurant and a woman came up to me and said I was pregnant with a boy. The very next month, I found out I was pregnant. I had a girl, but for my first 3 ultrasounds, I was told I was having a boy. It was eerie. So, yeah, there's a lot I kind of want to talk about here. One thing being, this doesn't mean the woman was psychic. Going up to people saying, you're pregnant with a boy, like, how many other people did she tell that to where she didn't get it right? If you go up to 100 people on the street, or 100 women, and say, you're pregnant with a boy, you're gonna get it right, probably at least 1 out of those 100 people. If you go up to a bunch of women of a certain age, chances are at least one of them is pregnant. It's just kind of like, you know, probability. So even though we're hearing a story here where she got it right, we don't hear about all the failures where she didn't get it right and where she went up to women and said, I can sense you're pregnant, and they weren't pregnant. We're not hearing about those stories. They're just someone saying, this crazy woman came up to me on the street today and said I was pregnant. And then they forget about it. Humans have a habit of looking for patterns and stuff, and we don't always notice the times where things fail. We kind of look for the links and connections between things and think, oh, well, stranger told me I was pregnant, and then I found out I was pregnant. There must be a link here. We don't look at the other times when this stranger failed and got it wrong with people. The other thing to remember is that, you know, when a person is pregnant, their hormones do change, and little things about them can change, even down to, like, your smell, your moods, how you look, your skin. Some people are very attuned to picking up on those things, and they, you know, it might be a subconscious thing, but there are people who can look at someone and be like, oh, you're pregnant. They don't necessarily know how they know, but they might be picking up on these subtle cues like changes in hormones and chemicals and smells and all sorts of stuff like that. The thing I find weird is when this woman says, but for my first 3 ultrasounds, I was told I was having a boy. That's weird to me because I don't know how things work in America or other countries, but in the UK, you only really have 2 main ultrasounds, and the rest are just like if something's wrong or there's complications or you're over a certain age or whatever. Your first ultrasound is usually between like 8 and 14 weeks, and there's no way to tell the gender of the baby then, or it's very difficult to tell the gender of the baby then, it's pretty much unknown. So I don't see why someone would tell them she was having a boy then. The next scan normally happens between like 18 and 21 weeks, and this is where they can tell the gender. And like, yeah, sometimes they get it wrong, but I'm pretty sure that usually it's more likely that they say you're having a girl when you end up having a boy than the other way around. So I'm not sure who got this wrong or why, and I'm not sure why, like, for the first 3 scans they were getting it wrong. I don't know. Just something doesn't add up to me here, and I feel like, I don't know, a bit dodgy. But like I say, I've never experienced a pregnancy myself, so I wouldn't know, thankfully. Maybe this is normal and weird and whatever, I don't know. Anyway, the point is, I don't think any of these were real psychics. But that's just me. I want you guys to let me know what you think of these stories down in the comments. Tell me if you think any of these could have, like, totally been legit psychics, yeah? Tell me if you've ever had any experiences with psychics and how you knew they were lying or telling the truth, or if you picked up on any hot or cold reading techniques from them, that sort of thing. Don't forget to check out my merch store for the charity t-shirt I'm doing with Kyra and raising money for Battersea. It would be really amazing if you want to check that out. Anyway, I'm sure I'm a little bit rambly here, so I'm going to end things here, but thank you so much for watching today. I appreciate you guys so much, and I'll see you again soon.